Well, hello YouTube, it's me, Fortmaster, and welcome to a new reaction. This is Overanalyzing Deltarune's amazing art by Afterlight. And this was a suggestion from my Discord server by Graf Copperfield. And, I mean, honestly, like, thinking about it, honestly, it's like, I mean, not just with, you know, Undertale and Deltarune, but, like, with pixel art games in general. Like, when you're done, like I've said before, like I love good pixel art because, you know, it's the whole thing, especially when you're dealing with, you know, Undertale and Deltarune, where they purposefully have their characters at such a small resolution, and yet they're able to get like so much character, you know, from such, I guess what you would call like rudimentary designs, like with so, like they're able to get so much with so few pixels. And then, I mean, you also get the little bit of, you know, the little bit of flavor that comes with, like, talk sprites. And in Undertale, you also had the battle sprites, which are, you know, a higher resolution as well. But again, it's one of those things that, like, you can there are very few characters in, like, if we're just going to talk about Deltarune here, like, there are very few characters where you can't, like, tell what they are. Or, like, for, in a Darkner's instance, like, what they're based off of. Like, honestly, I think the worst ones would ironically be would be a few of the Darkners you see in Chapter 2, because, like, several of the Darkners you see, like the Addisons, Spampton, Queen, like, they're all rather, you know, they're all rather, like, distant from what they actually are. Like, if you go to Chapter 1, Lancer and King, they're both playing cards. They're both, you know, spade playing cards. With, you know, Lancer being an ace, therefore he's the smallest, and then King being the king, duh. But then if you go to Chapter 2, Queen is supposedly a laptop, and besides the fact that she, you know, sometimes has, like, text going across her visor, or her, like, very, you know, kind of funny speaking patterns, like, there's nothing really directly pointing towards her being a laptop if you look at her. And the same with the Addisons. Where, like, they're supposedly, you know, like, ads from online, but, like, unless you actually, like, talk to them and listen to what they're saying, there's no real way of distinguishing what they are just by looking at them. But honestly, those two examples are very much in the minority here, and even then, they may not be good examples of being able to tell what they are, but they're still good designs just in general. So, I mean, you know, having a look at all the designs and actually, like, pointing out what makes them good, I mean, as somebody, you know, I don't know who this Afterlight is, but I hope that they're able to, like, describe why they're actually good better than what I can do. So yeah, let's actually get this thing started. So, of course, as always, original videos linked in the description if you haven't seen it for some reason. Corner video linked to my Let's Play of the day. And if you like this video or any other video that I make, I'd very much appreciate it if you gave the video a like and subscribe to my channel, because over 3/4 of the people that watch my videos aren't subscribed, and I'd very much like that to change, because my main goal for this year is hopefully hit 6,000 subscribers by the end of the year. But yeah, with all that out of the way, let's get this thing started then, shall we?
Of all the visual styles in gaming, I think pixel art has to be one of my favorites. There's just something beautiful about these crunchy little squares. They're simple, readable, and also largely accessible for game creators who might not have as much practical knowledge in places like 2D art to make assets for their game. One of the best examples of this is Toby Fox, who, especially at the time of Undertale, just wasn't particularly technically skilled in 2D drawing, although I think he's great at creative creature design. Many of Undertale's characters were Toby designs. There are posts of his concept art for both Undertale and Deltarune online, and they're really cool to look at. I'd suggest you do. He's worked with a few different creators over the years, mainly Temmie Chang, but there are also guest artists and concept designers like GGDG, Canotines, Chess, Splendid.
What? I'm sorry, what was that Lancer design? What was that? What is going on here? So, I mean, Frog Lancer, okay, but then there's weird Lancer with a spade tail? Oh, that's weird, okay. What's going on with these two Lancers?
Chess, Splendid Land, who also made that great fake game Apple Quest, by the way, which is crazy to me.
Oh, really?
I didn't
Okay.
Concept art for Deltarune.
Cool.
And of course, many others. Like Gerson, who Google credits as a music artist on the game.
Oh, God, Google, why are you so horrible?
I've been curious about pixel art for a long time. I actually did my first game jam a bit ago and downloaded Sprite to poke around and do a bit of learning. A big part of this process was studying the work of some of my favorite pixel artists like 6VCR, Goodgis, and Plastaboo. but also looking at games I'm inspired by, like Celeste, late era pixel Pokemon games, Off, Baba Is You, and, of course, Deltarune. As Deltarune's developed over the years, its art has gotten better and better, especially in the new character animations in places like Tenna's minigames. And I thought it would be fun to take a look through the sprites and see what I could learn from them as an artist.
You know, that's a really funny thing to say, because, like, yeah, it's a good... Yeah, obviously it is true, but at the same time, it kind of just comes with the territory, given that, you know, it was, what, like 5 years between the first and the most recent chapters?
Sprites are hard. Small sprites especially so. While some characters will have the opportunity for bigger portraits or shop sprites, most of what comes on screen cannot afford to be that size. So things need...
Actually learned they redid swatches of World Sprite. Doesn't look like... Yeah, I remember that one. I didn't realize they changed it. Okay.
Need to be compressed. There are a few standard character shapes most games go with to achieve this. Deltarune does not do this.
Honestly, going back to those, like, pixel, like, shapes, like, I remember, like, early YouTube, it seemed like, I never got into it myself, but I saw so many characters redone in, like, a Mega Man style. That was just sort of the thing you did at the time.
One of the things I admire most about Deltarune is the sheer variety of shapes it uses in its design. While some characters do lean to the anthropomorphic side, there are so many unique silhouettes and interesting shapes. Deltarune is never afraid to exaggerate and be a little silly.
Yeah.
There is sort of a general fear in art I see of having anything come across as ugly, because you love the characters and want other people to be connected to them too. But Deltarune pushes expression and features all the time, and it makes its monsters really endearing to me. Actually, some of its most popular characters are very unconventional. Spamton and Tenna share these ice cream noses, and Jevils just plain weird in a very fun way.
And I mean, there's, you know, that's not saying anything about, you know, the fact that Tenna is just on another level of magnitude when it comes to resolution and quality, because he's literally a pixelized a photograph of a 3D model.
By far my favorites are some of the enemies when they can just get silly with them. Bibliox, Pop-Up, Shut Up.
Oh god, yeah.
And I know they're not enemies, but the Cuptons have my heart. The first chapter especially has a lot of shapes in mind with its creature designs, with such heavy theming around game pieces and specifically the suits of cards. Mr. Society, the Rudins, Pippins, and Hathies, the Starwalker bird, Clover, and of course Lancer and his dad all fall into card suit theming.
Yeah, of course.
You can really see it in sprites like Hathi. I love this hurt sprite's stupid teeth.
Okay, I've never actually attacked them before, so I didn't realize... Man, the fact they have teeth is kind of disturbing. Wow, okay.
And I really admire this sort of thing. For how on the nose it can be in places, there is a certain kind of whimsy to this that I absolutely love. Detail is hard at such a small scale. Any kind of art will tell you that. You have to prioritize certain elements and create something that will connect with your audience and be recognizable at scale. Every pixel counts. And here, they are drawn so expressive and full of life, with little expressions and animations that make them feel like real characters. I wanted to help the Cuptons.
As opposed to fake characters? What?
These tiny armless creatures so dedicated to making the climb despite constantly falling and failing, with their stupid wiggle up the towers. I wanted to engage in their story, and so when they show up later to help you, I was weirdly emotionally impacted by these determined creatures doing their best for you. Because their wiggle animation was funny. Or the Pippins, characters who initially fell a bit more flat in the design area for me, until the green Pippin shows up and pulls out his conspiracy board while looking at you like this, and there is so much energy in these faces. It legitimately got a full-on laugh out of me the first time I saw them do it.
God, yeah.
I think overall as a chapter, the cyber world has the best NPC and enemy design. Not because I dislike any of the other chapter's enemies, Cuptons for life, but because they don't serve the same purpose. Outside of boss enemies like Elnina and Lenino or Jackenstein, by the way, I need a plush of D. Pumpkin Jackenstein, this is the best thing I have ever seen.
Also, I've been wondering, I always wondered what Jackenstein's true head is, or true face is, and I remember, I'm forgetting who said it now, but somebody suggested that it was actually potentially just the candle that was inside the jack-o'-lantern. So, I mean, yeah, that makes sense.
They were designed to exist a bit more in the background, or as NPCs to carry the story. 3 uses very limited amounts of actual enemies. It's mostly just shadow guys on the actual playing field, but it uses what they do have very well with a lot of personality. It's the first game to get me to care about a water cooler. 4 as a whole has a much more chill and ominous vibe, and the level of silly that Deltarune usually pulls would feel out of place and tonally distracting. Sort of like if Undertale's True Lab was also the place you fought Mad Mew Mew. So we get creatures like Baltha Lizard and Wingblade most of the time, and then occasionally have the gloom broken by Jackenstein's adorable Tippy Taps. Something I particularly love about Chapter 2 is actually the way it uses colors, both in its world, which I love, but I am personally terrible at environment design, so I do not feel confident that I could explain why without sounding like a crazy person. But I have taken color theory classes, and this makes me happy. Cyberworld primarily uses greens, blues, pinks, and yellows to give off almost the effect of one of those Tokyo at night pictures.
Neon, yeah.
Considering the futuristic neon city aesthetic is sometimes called cyberpunk, yeah, this makes sense to me. Deltarune makes some pretty great use of color. Some personal favorites from this zone are Pop-Up and Wearwire. Pop-Up is actually pretty unique because of the way it handles its outlines. Now,
they're red.
I know outlines are a small thing to be pointing out here, but they do make a big difference. Interestingly to me, many of the Light World characters, particularly the ones who previously appeared in Undertale, tend to have pure black line work. Some Dark World characters do too, of course, but they'll often make use of colored internal lines or different line styles, like how the Shadow guys have white outlines to separate them
because they're
from
literally
the battle.
black, yeah.
The Addisons and Spamton actually outline themselves in gray, which I never really noticed until I made this video, and now I cannot unnotice this.
I mean, that definitely does make sense, because thinking back to Undertale, like, there were apart from, like, a couple of locations, there were very few, like, maps or areas where you walked through that were in, like, very dark in color. And, like, so for basically all of them, you could have a black outline, just, you know, traditional black outline, and it still worked. But in the Dark World, where it's a world made of darkness, having a black outline doesn't really work that well, because it just gets sucked into the background on top of that. So you have a lot of characters with, you know, colored outlines, so they actually stick out more on the literal black background. It's just, it comes down to contrast.
And then characters like Mizzle and the K-Rounds will use it for texture. A hard black line would make no sense on a water creature. Usually these sort of fit along with the general colors of the character and don't come across as too jarring. Pop-Up does not care. It outlines its bright blue body in red and is proud of it. And I know it isn't a traditional example of the way Deltarune handles sprites, but I wanted to point this one out because of what an interesting effect I think it adds to the little fellow. It's not just a harsh red, it's broken up and dotted all over the sprite, mainly being used for interior lines.
I mean, again, it makes sense when the character is the literal personification of a pop-up ad.
This keeps it from being too overwhelming, considering it already features quite a bit on the inside of the mouth and on its little spring leg warmer situations. I think the reason it's so different is that it wasn't designed by Toby or Temmie at all, and was instead a contribution of Splendid Lands, whose original concept art had less red, but also featured bright green in the outline, which looks great in the drawing, but on the sprite would have been probably too many colors.
Yeah.
Something looking at Deltarune's characters has taught me is that the sprites look best when you've got a small library of well-used colors. The pop-up actually only has 4, and I think removing the green for it was the right choice.
Wait, so we got the blue, we have the, what is it you called it? We have the light blue, we have the dark navy blue? No, that's not navy blue. We'll just call it dark blue. We have the red and the yellow. And, I mean, and white, but does white really count? It's more of a shade. Yeah, okay.
The sprites in Cyberworld actually tend to share a library of basic colors. Not the exact same shades, but, you know, sort of the same zone. The red extending to the blush on this character, or the fact that the purple of the back leg comes back on the Wear-Wear-Wire. It makes for an ultimately more cohesive cast of enemies, and it looks great. Speaking of colors, the outline thing I mentioned was something that I went down a much bigger rabbit hole for than I initially expected. I actually find this really interesting. One thing I wanted to understand a bit more was why certain sprites felt flatter to me than others, so that I could, you know, explain that in this video. But I noticed what a big role the outlines have to play in it. When we have that thick black outline on its own, it can feel even more like a 2D drawing than the medium kinda already makes your brain think.
I mean, I guess with Napstablook, that does actually work. Because it helps him actually stick out more if he's, like, blatantly, you know, different from everything else.
A lot of Undertale's characters do this. The battle sprites, for one, because they were just done in black and white, will mitigate this by giving the characters some fun motion. But the overworld sprites tend to come off a bit blockier. We can actually see the artists have pulled back for Deltarune. Asgore and Alphys are good examples because while they still have that black outer line, their clothes have been changed to having lineless or colored lines on the inside, making them a bit softer and providing volume like how Asgore's arm hair does.
Okay.
Except Sans. Sans knows what he is. Sans has not changed a bit. He is Sans.
He is Sans, and I've talked about this in my Discord server before. But my current headcanon, and I will stick to it until proven otherwise, that if and or when we see Sans in a Dark World, the only thing that will change about his outfit at all is the fact his slippers will be pink, and that will be it. That'll be it.
The way line is handled changes a lot from sprite to sprite. From no lines at all to lines to color everywhere, there's plenty of beautiful experimentation that helps give each character their unique look. The last thing I think I should talk about is the playable characters. Chris, Ralsei, Susie, and, occasionally, Noelle. Unlike many of the
Hopefully
enemy
we get to play
monsters,
with
these
Noelle
characters
again.
have slightly more humanoid forms, or just
Are human.
I really like all their defaults. I think for a character having a more neutral design as their base is a good idea, because, especially with how difficult communicating detail at scale can be, having a design that's easier to move for things like battle and exploration animations is a good idea.
I mean, it's going back to the whole outline thing again. Chris's hair is, a very dark brown, but then that extends to basically the entirety of their outline and their pants. There's no black on them at all. It's all just dark browns.
I also think it makes the moments with special unique sprites even cooler. Chris and the gang coming out in rockstar outfits during Chapter 3 made me unreasonably excited. Also, honorable mention to Susie and Azriel's church clothes, frazzled Chris with a hockey stick, and Horse Ralsei.
Horse Ralsei, yeah, I love Horse
What
Ralsei.
they choose to wear and how they wear it in a costume change tells me so much about who they are. Ralsei 100% sees mohawks as the ultimate rock and roll cool. Susie's dino onesie might have been based off a set of pajamas when she was a kid and played this game. Even if it isn't necessarily a change in costume, the way Chris gets much more frazzled and expressive when we aren't in control still hits with that same impact considering how used to the neutral expression we've gotten by the point it gets to come out.
Yeah.
Things like this is what makes characters real. Even if it's just what onesie they would choose to wear if given the option.
Again, there is just so much dog, connections to Chris. Why, specifically?
There is a tremendous amount of work that goes into creating any art, much less polishing it into a finished product. Pixel art as a whole, I think, isn't given enough credit because it is an old style of video game art.
Yeah.
Limitation did basically force us into it back in the days of Pong and Frogger, so some companies see it as outdated, an era of that time. We get things like Pokemon remasters where all their beautiful, chunky lines and well-considered compositions are 3D modeled out of the original charm that they held, because 3D is seen as more current and higher tech. And I find that a shame. Looking over these sprites and seeing just how important every single pixel is to the final effect only made me appreciate the sheer effort that goes into these projects more.
I know, it's that whole, thought process where, I'm very much of the belief that, true creativity only comes about from having to work within limitations. If you have, the ultimate freedom to do anything, then you're not forced to, experiment or try new things out. You're not forced to do it. And so when you set yourself up with these with these restrictions of working with pixel art in a certain resolution and having to work within those constraints, actually being able to make something presentable is just that much more of an accomplishment, as opposed to, hey, we made this 1,000 by 1,000, we could do anything, but then it just kind of be there.
So I hope you enjoyed my little dig through it. That'll be all for me today. Don't forget to like and subscribe on your way out. Thanks for watching, and good night.
Okay, very nice. Yeah, that was a very nice video. Again, when it comes to stuff like this, I know, as I said, I knew I liked pixel art, but it's always, getting the words out and finding the proper words that's always the issue for me. Let alone the times that I literally forget the words that I want to use. But again, I will always, granted, I know 3D modeling is also hard. There's also an act for doing it properly. And you just have to look at, Garten of Banban to see it done poorly. If you don't know about that, just look up, the fact that technically, all the models in there have like infinite polygon counts or something like that. It's nuts. But but with anything, it's like doing it properly takes skill. It's one of those things that when you see it, and it's done well, you can tell it's done well. But yeah, that's definitely going to be it for now. So yeah, I hope you guys liked. If you did, leave a like, subscribe if you have not, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.